Hello and welcome to Extraordinary Women TV with Shannon Skinner. I'm your host. Well, I have a fantastic show lined up for you today. In the first half hour, you're going to meet Irene Patterson, who is the associate publisher of Metro News. And later in the segment, before we take a break, I'll have my regular Good to Know Minute when I ask my guests for their top success tip. You're going to hear Irene's. And in the second half of the show, we're going to be talking about micro-lending, micro-franchising in South Africa, so stay tuned for that. Well, my first guest, Irene Patterson, is the associate publisher of Metro News, which is Canada's #1 free daily newspaper. She also is the publisher of the new Metro London newspaper as well. Irene Patterson, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And you look so lovely in black. It makes your eyes really stand out.
Thank you.
Now, you have a long-standing career in sales. You've worked with all of the major newspapers in Canada. Now, what inspired you or sparked you to move from a sales role into the role of a publisher?
It was a transition that came to me very easily. In fact, I spent a number of years raising my children, and while I was doing that, I wanted to be sure that I expanded my knowledge base of publishing, and was very deliberate in going into the custom publishing business, whereby I was able to work with clients from concept to distribution of a product. And that allowed me insight into all the other channels of publishing that I was never exposed to. And I did that for 5 years, and so when I went back into the corporate world, I knew that my goal was to be a publisher at some point.
And that happened.
It did.
Your dream came true.
Well, it was something that, as I said, I look forward to. I prepared for it. I love the fact that sales is an integral part of the publishing industry, and what I enjoy most is learning, and so I definitely learned the content side of the business, the distribution side. I always say to people, you're only as good as your distribution. It's those eyeballs that we need, and we make an effort to make sure that we get the product in the right hands.
Now let's talk about what is Metro News, certainly for those people out there who may not be aware. It is Canada's #1 free daily newspaper, but the key word here is free. That's what makes it stand out from others, right?
It is free. Concept that was started 16 years ago in Sweden and took Europe by storm. Traditionally became a commuter type newspaper where riders in the morning would have the opportunity to pick up a free newspaper, condensed version of a bigger broadsheet newspaper, so that in fact you could read that newspaper in a limited amount of time before you got to your office. In Canada, we've expanded that. We have a free daily concept, but it's not just restricted to commuters. You can find it in Toronto, for example, 1,500 boxes on the street. So, if you're not commuting, you still can walk to the box and pick it up. And it's a bigger paper than it might be in some other communities across Canada. So it's a good read.
And I've got one here. This is actually, we'll show the camera. This is what it looks like.
That's right.
And so it's perfectly designed so that if you are riding the subway or the bus, you can still read it and not really annoy the person that's sitting next to you too much.
That's very, very manageable.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Very manageable.
Now, Metro, but this is a publishing chain that goes beyond, just Toronto and London.
Mm-hmm.
It's in many major cities across Canada.
Well, we're in 9 major cities in Canada.
Right.
Montreal, Halifax, Ottawa, Toronto,
Yeah.
and London. And then we have the West, which we have papers in Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, and Winnipeg.
Now, your move then from sales, the sales function, into publisher, I mean, was there a really big learning curve for you?
I wouldn't say it was a big learning curve. I now take on a role of general management. So we look at each aspect of publishing, and we ensure that, you know, we have great people in those divisions, and we all come together and work together to reach the same goals. And it's trying to that fine balance of, you know, great content, great distribution, of course, ad revenues, because it's the only thing. It's the only thing that drives the profitability of the paper, and making sure that there's a harmonious group that takes charge of the vision that we all have and we all share.
So then, the role of a publisher, I mean, it has kind of a sexy sound to it, doesn't it? Publisher. But what is the actual role then of a publisher of a newspaper? Certainly for those viewers who maybe, you know, don't have an understanding of the inside operation of media, like you and I have the inside scoop,
right.
but maybe not everyone does. So what is the role of a publisher?
Well, we like to think that every day we give a reader, our customer, an enjoyable time spent with a product that has meaning for them, engages them, and what we try to do is take feedback, encourage people to give us that feedback, and improve the product. Improving product is either on content, distribution, market expansion. Lots of people asking for, you know, when are we coming to the prairies, and when, you know, are you going into another small town like London? So that
Right.
publisher role is to take that long-term goal or vision of expansion and improvement, product improvement, to keep readers engaged day after day, month after month, and year after year.
So what would a regular day look like for you once you walk in the office? Now, I know that you drive back and forth to London a couple of times a week. You know, that's not, you know, that's very time consuming. I know that's a big part of what you're doing now.
Yeah.
But just to give me a sense of when you walk in the door, what do you do?
Well, first thing I do is make sure that everybody knows I'm there. We meet regularly with each department head to go through the layout of the next day's paper, to make sure that layout then is translated to the editorial staff, who then will write for the paper and produce the content. We take a look at the previous night's distribution and how successful or not it was. And then we spend time with what do we have coming down the pipe on the sales side of the equation. What are we doing to make sure that we're going out there and leading with innovative and creative ideas on how to bring advertisers to life in paper? So it's a lot of departmental head meetings, and then I spend a lot of time walking around. And, you know, I talk to mostly every department each and every day.
Now, are publishers and editors often at loggerhead? I mean, do you find yourselves sort of maybe not with the same sort of idea where, you know, the paper should be going every single day in terms of its direction, or?
Yes, of course. But I honestly believe that at Metro we spend an awful lot of time trying to ensure that we have very, very good people in each of our divisions. And we respect and value their contribution and their leadership in those roles. I defer to them to make sure that I understand why they're doing what they want or need to do, and will engage in some discussion for sure, but for the most part I let these people run their divisions.
Now, the one thing that as we were chatting last night in preparation for the show, you'd mentioned that there are not very many female publishers in newspapers, that there is a tendency to see in magazines, there are more female publishers in magazines, but not so much with the daily newspapers. Why do you think that is?
Oh, it's historical. In the newspaper game, it was a very male-dominated industry for so many years, and I think that's just sustained itself. And likewise, on the magazine side, it was the softer side of news and reporting, and females tended to gravitate to that. But I know that in Canada, there's so much potential for other female, successful females within organizations to traverse that ladder and get to a publishing role.
And of course, you're a fantastic example of that.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll pick it up. But this means it's time for my Good to Know Minute. And Irene, I know that you've got a great tip for the viewers, so jump right in there.
Well, I think the successful Irene has a very good balance between work and life. And life at home for me is 3 children, young adults right now, who still require and demand a lot of my time. I try to balance that. It's important for me to replenish my energy at home with my children so that I can, in fact, be successful at work. And is it always balanced? No. Do we course correct as we need? Absolutely. But I do make a very deliberate attempt at taking that time for myself and my family to make sure that I communicate to them what I do every day at work, and they in turn communicate to me what their needs are. And balance is important. It's key.
Well, thank you, Irene. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more with Irene Patterson, Associate Publisher of Metro News, Canada's #1 free daily newspaper. So stay right there. Welcome back to the show. I'm Shannon Skinner, and I'm joined by Irene Patterson, who is the Associate Publisher of Metro News, Canada's #1 free daily newspaper. And of course, she has the new role of Publisher of Metro London, which is the chain's newest newspaper. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, before we get the break, we were talking about your life as a publisher, as a female publisher in the publishing industry. And there are not many female publishers in newspapers in Canada, more so in magazines. What has been the greatest challenge or obstacle that you have faced in your new role?
Several years back, we needed to lay off some people. The economy had taken a downturn, and that was excruciatingly painful for me. Metro has lots of very young people starting out in their careers, and we needed to lay off a few people. I made every effort, Shannon, to make sure that we helped transition these people into new roles outside of our organization. But respectfully, I have to tell you that it probably was the hardest thing I have ever done. To look at candidates who, through no fault of their own, and certainly not anything related to performance, were losing their jobs.
Right. And I would imagine, I mean, that's a difficult position to be in for, any business owner, including that of a publisher.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Now, before the break, we talked about the issue of work-life balance. And that is something that's very, very important to you. You've got a very busy career. You spend most of your time in Toronto, and of course you drive back and forth to London a couple times a week. How do you find the balance? I mean, you've got a family at home, 3 kids, and I know that you're also quite active with your family. But how do you do it?
Well, I think you have to be as deliberate about making sure that home is as effective as work. And I hate to say this, but I plan it. I plan what I need to do at home, the same way that I plan what I need to do at work. And I'm a very value-centered leader, so I always put a customer or an employee or a shareholder, before I put, my needs in place. And I do that at home. I do that with my children. They're young adults, but still, we're deliberate about spending time, making sure that we, reach out and communicate to one another. So I think for the most part, if you just allow your family to kind of blend into what happens at work, work will consume. There is no doubt.
Now, do you think that any of your children may follow your footsteps as that of a publisher, or certainly in the news industry?
I would think that probably my daughter would try. She's my youngest. My 2 boys are athletes and are looking to, do something in the sports world. But my daughter has often said to me that, this intrigues her, that the newspaper industry intrigues her. But having said that, she's 16, and next week I'm sure she'll want to be a vet.
It'll change flavor like the wind. Now, I have one question that I would absolutely love to hear your answer is, how do you define success? I mean, you've had a successful career in sales, and now as a publisher of a very popular daily newspaper. Great family life. I mean, how do you define success?
If you can make people proud of who they are and make people proud of what they do, that's my measure of success.
Make people proud.
Make people proud.
Now, we have a couple minutes left. Is there anything, a message you want to share with the viewers about Metro News? Anything that's new, that's coming up, or
okay,
like to share?
Well, sure. As you know, Shannon, we expand every year in some measure, whether we add a newspaper to a new market or we grow considerably inside of one market. Next year will be a pivotal year for Metro newspapers in that we will focus a lot of our attention on the digital side of our business. We have a very young, active audience. Mobile is very, very important to this audience, and we will spend money and effort against ensuring that we have applications on mobile that will enhance what you get from the paper, from the newspaper every day. A big commitment on Metro's part to be first to market on the digital side of Metro newspapers.
Well, Irene, I wish you all the best with that, and in your career, your successful, glamorous career as a publisher. And I thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your story and more about what you do with my viewers. And if anyone wants to find out more information about you or to read the newspaper online, they go to, is it metronews.ca?
It is.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much.
And thank you for having me.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, you are going to meet Martha Deacon, who is the CEO and founder of the Townships Project. You're going to hear quite a remarkable story, so stay where you are. And of course, for more information about the show, you can visit my website at extraordinarywomentv.com, and you can follow me on Twitter. Stay right there. We'll see you soon.